So hey, like I said before, my name is Amethyst, and I am 26, almost 27 years old, and I am a therapist. So some of my perspectives might be a little bit different or skewed, I'm not sure. uh, but I just wanted to first tell my first story about the time when I was psychiatrically hospitalized for about a week, and then I went into an outpatient program for like a month, 2 weeks. I honestly don't remember the time frame. So let's just start there. If I'm looking down, it's because I have notes to help me out because I am very scatterbrained at times. Okay, so yes, I had a suicide attempt 10 years ago when I was 16 years old, and I was hospitalized for it. So first of all, let me just say my emotions in this were extremely valid. My thoughts were also valid, but that doesn't mean they were right. And my thoughts and my feelings as a therapist, those aren't always facts. Despite being valid, they are not always true. But also understandable why I felt this way. So leading up to this point, there's a lot of traumatic events in my life. I had a really unstable home life. I won't be getting into that. It's not fully my story to tell. And I also just don't think it's good to share at this moment. So, but basically these traumatic events really shaped my attachment style. So, if you don't know, there's a whole bunch of attachment theories. John Bowlby, Mary Ainsworth did a lot of experiments with this, a lot of research into attachment styles, which I won't get into fully, but basically my attachment style that I observed was I was very anxiously attached to my family, very anxiously attached to my relationships, and that really formed as I was growing up. So 10 years ago, I was a high school junior, just living it up, not really living it up, but I was in a typical high school relationship. So, nothing bad to say about my boyfriend at the time. He was a typical 16-year-old boy, just like I was a typical 16-year-old girl. We did love each other. I do believe that, you can love at that age and it's very real. But obviously being 16, we did not have the best communication habits. We didn't have the best just relationship habits in general. Especially since I was coming in with my own kind of baggage, as they say. Not that I don't think he really had too much baggage, but, we had very different relationships with our parents, and of course coming into that can be very complex. He was a good guy basically, but we didn't have the best relationship because I was just very anxious all the time. So, and part of anxious attachment is, when somebody goes away, you're always questioning things, you're not really trusting things. When that person like technically leaves you or leaves you alone, you're always, you can't be comforted. You're very distrustful and just always worried about things. And then when they come back, you kind of fawn over them and you're like, oh my gosh, but then you're never quite satisfied because you're always anxious that they might leave you, or move on, things like that. So anyway, we were both immature, but it was a good relationship. Okay, whatever. So one day I saw on Instagram, so a social media post thing, which that's a whole nother topic. Social media can be very complex. Excuse me. But I saw on an Instagram post that he was hanging out with this other chick, and I didn't really know her, and I was kind of confused why after school they just kind of got something to eat, and I was like, okay, cool, not sure what's going on there. Again, I'm anxious attachment, I was very distrustful, and I freaked out. And so I broke up with him, and my anxious mind was like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? I'm pushing you away, but also I still want you. I still love you. So I freaked out. I was like, please take me back. He didn't take me back. He didn't want to deal with this anymore. I think it's because I probably picked a lot of fights. Don't honestly remember too much. This was 10 years ago. So yeah, I freaked out. He didn't want me back. So my immediate thoughts in all of this, also just because of my home life, my family life, was very complex. I was not in a good place. I didn't feel supported. I felt very alone. Very, I wouldn't say unloved, but just not understood. So these are the thoughts that went through my head. I'm so unlovable. This is the most overwhelming feeling I've ever had, and I can't deal with this anymore. So here's where the therapist in me comes out. So I realize your thoughts, we'll bring CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, into this, but your thoughts typically lead to your emotions, and your emotions lead to how we behave, and then that goes kind of in a cycle. So me right here, learning from this now, I would have had those thoughts and been like, okay, but are these thoughts a fact? These thoughts are valid. I didn't feel loved. Okay, yeah, I probably didn't. And but if we're looking at the facts here, I am loved. Like, it was understandable why this boy probably didn't want to get back together with me, because we fought all the time, and so on and so forth. So yeah, those are my thoughts. And at that moment, that was the culmination of just horrible things that had been going on for me at home. And so I didn't think there was a way out. I thought, I don't want to feel like this anymore. I do not want to have to deal with these emotions anymore. It hurts so much that I don't know what to do. I physically don't know how to ask for help. I don't know what to do. So, I freaked out, and I went into my family's medicine cabinet, and I just grabbed some of my mom's medication. I didn't even know what it was, and I probably took, I don't even know, 20 pills, something like that, 15 pills. I honestly can't remember, but I took a lot of them, and I didn't know what they were. So here's me sitting on the bathroom floor, crying my eyes out, and just uncontrollably sobbing, feeling like the worst human being ever. I was so scared. I don't know what was happening, and I didn't think I was gonna be emotional about this, but so my brother comes in, and he sees me on the floor. He sees the pill bottle, and understandably he freaks out too. So he calls my mom. First he sits on the floor with me, and he was like, Amy, why did you do this? Why did you do this? At least that I recall. It could have been different, but so yeah, he goes and gets my mom. He goes and gets my dad. They're of course freaking out as well. They call the ambulance, and so I get picked up by the ambulance. And I also had a habit of self-harming at this time. It was not a suicide attempt. As a therapist, I know that not most of self-harm is not suicidal behavior. It's mostly to release emotions or to feel something different, a physical manifestation of the emotional pain inside. It's a lot of different things, but in this case, it was just that case. I didn't know what else to do. There was so much pain on the inside that I cut myself as well. It was not very, very deep. So anyway, so that was also something. So one of the most profound things I remember throughout all this was just how guilty I felt going in the ambulance and having these people come to my house, and seeing my parents so upset and my brother so upset. I'd never seen them like that before. And all I remember is I said, I'm so sorry to the guy that was taking me away in the gurney. I remember, I'm so sorry. you know, I didn't mean for this, like, I'm so sorry. And that has stuck out to me the most because again, that was that anxious attachment. It's like, I don't know what to do. Like, please don't leave me. I'm sorry for kind of taking up space. I'm sorry for existing. I'm sorry for having these emotions. I'm just so sorry for all of this. I had to take a deep breath after that one. So anyway, I don't have any more notes after this, but so they took me to the hospital. I was definitely really out of it. I'm pretty sure the medication I took was like expired and they didn't have to pump my stomach or anything. But I just remember them asking me questions and I've never been high before. I didn't know what that feeling was, but I felt very out of it and I couldn't even like look at people straight in the eye without like, I don't know, I was just like tripping out. So it was a scary night, but I spent the night there but I was fine. And my parents stayed with me the entire time. And so then the next day, they admitted me into an inpatient facility. And I believe I stayed there for 10, 12 days, something like that. But that could be a whole nother different story. But I do want to speak to how incredibly scary being admitted into that was. You know, they make you do like basically cough and squat kind of thing. Like they check you when you're naked. Like this is very much TMI, but like I was on my period. I had never done anything like that before. It was incredibly, I don't want to say dehumanizing, but because I understand the importance of it, I don't think it was dehumanizing, but it was just the most vulnerable I had ever felt in my life, physically, emotionally, and everything like that. And the whole time I was just thinking about my boyfriend, like, is he hanging out with this girl? Of course, I wasn't focused on myself. I was just like, I feel so bad that I put my parents through all this. Like, what is my ex-boyfriend doing right now? But soon, the longer I stayed, I had that chance to be able to focus on myself and how I was feeling, because throughout all these traumatic events that, again, I will not go into, but I was on survival mode, meaning I had to be aware of what was going on with everybody else's emotions. I had to ignore mine because my thoughts and feelings didn't matter at this point. It was, how are you feeling? Because I want to make sure that you're okay. I want to make sure that things stay calm in the house. I want to make sure that nobody's fighting. So that's probably why I picked a lot of fights with my boyfriend, because I just wanted everything to stay calm at home. So anyway, another story. But so the most vulnerable I'd ever felt, but it truly validated me in the sense that when people were interviewing me, assessing me, trying to diagnose me, I just remember I'm pretty sure it was a student, I think it was a teaching hospital, and I'm pretty sure like a PhD or something student was taking notes on everything that had happened and like all the events that had led up to there. They eventually diagnosed me with PTSD and I think maybe major depressive disorder. I'm not honestly sure, but I do remember the PTSD part. I just remember the guy looking at me after taking all his notes. He just like put down his pen and he was like, holy shit, like that's a lot of stuff. And I was like, yeah, you know what, that really is. And I'd never honestly like laid it out on the table of how much I had gone through in a period of probably 3 to 4 years that I was living in that fight or flight mode. And it was just tough. It was really tough, but it was so validating. It was so validating. And all the kids that were in there with me were going through such deep things that it made me really step back and realize, 1, I'm not alone. I'm not alone. 2, I'm not crazy. Like they're like I definitely felt crazy, but also it was like, I don't know, everybody could benefit from this, honestly. It was a good experience, and I know a lot of people do not have that good experience, and that that makes me sad, but I can also see how that could be even further damaging. Especially as a person now who is a therapist who refers people to higher levels of care, because I'm an outpatient therapist, so I'm at the lowest level of care. You know, if somebody's saying, you know, suicidal thoughts and things like that, depending on the assessment, depending on how serious it is, right? You know, sometimes I'm gonna throw to them. Sometimes I'm gonna suggest that they present to a hospital to get evaluated. So I don't know. I think that just has served me so much in how I empathize with people that are really scared, who have these thoughts, but are like, I'm terrified of actually going. What is it gonna be like? You know, how am I gonna feel? It's gonna be scary, but it can't be any scarier truly than always feeling like complete crap all the time and feeling like you don't want to be here anymore and like there's no hope. So all that being said, there's a lot more into that. Like I said, I spent also a couple more weeks at an IOP, which is like an intensive outpatient place that was about an hour away from my house. So, you know, every day we would drive there, and I just remember thinking, I'm so grateful. Like, my parents were a big cause a lot of my pain, but also in that moment, I think too, subconsciously, it was like, I wanted this to be a wake-up call for them. And because I felt like everything was snowballing and nobody was understanding how serious it was. And you could say, oh, this is a cry for attention. Yeah, it was a cry for attention. Like subconsciously, 100% it was a cry for attention, because I needed love. I needed somebody to say, you're not okay, and that's okay, and you're also not alone. So yeah, I spent those 2 weeks or however many weeks, you know, with my peers there again too. It was at an even different facility, so it was different people. And then I actually switched to one closer to my house, I think, at one point, and I got lice at one point from that place. Oh my gosh, what a crazy ride. But I honestly made some really good friends there. And which I know, again, is not the case for everybody, but overall, the purpose of me telling this, one, for myself to get it out, two, because now being a therapist, now on the edge of thinking about becoming a mother, I'm married, I'm a lot older than I was, obviously 10 years ago, and my perspective on everything has completely shifted, and I think about my little baby self, and how strong that it was to go through all that, and at the end, you know, like, still being able to communicate with my parents, like learning, doing all of the hard work for everybody else around me. And obviously that's really hard and really draining, but it definitely was a catalyst into everybody else around me kind of opening their eyes, getting their own help. So there's good that comes from bad. There is. And sometimes we don't always get to know what that good is. Thank goodness in this case I do, and I can look back on that. But a lot of times when we're in the fray, when we're in the middle of this battle that we're fighting, we can't see that. And especially when people have depression, when people have these continual thoughts, I get it. It's, you don't see a way out. You do not. You physically are at the end of you're so exhausted from feeling this way that it's, you know how much it's gonna take to feel better. But I promise you that is worth it. It's so worth it. And my life is not obviously super easy now, but it's these lessons that I take with me every single day, at work, at home. And, you know, I don't like to place my identity and just being a therapist, and that's a whole nother conversation as well. So I don't just consider myself a therapist. I'm so much more than that. And honestly, I don't know if I want to do therapy for the rest of my life because of how draining it is. And I know a lot of therapists feel that the same way, but I know that my stories can help people, and I know that with time things can get better. Sometimes they can't, but again, we don't necessarily see the good that comes at the end of that. So sometimes it takes a whole lifetime to look back and gain a new perspective and say, like, wow, if this didn't happen, then this never would have happened, and then this never would have happened, and I wouldn't have been on this path. And so I truly do believe that everything happens for a reason. And I pray that in the midst of everything, if you're going through this, if somebody in your life is going through this, you know, push them to ask for help. Ask, like, are you okay? How are you doing? What can I do? I see you're exhausted. What can I do to help? And sometimes that's doing nothing and just holding their hand through it. Sometimes it's giving them a hug, letting them cry. You know, sometimes it's, you know, we need more intensive interventions, and that's okay too. It really just depends, but we'll never know if we don't ask. And because sometimes that person doesn't have the energy or the words or the vocabulary to reach out for that. So if you're noticing somebody needs help, please be that person, or at least guide them to resources where somebody else can be that person. Because it can get better. It can. I won't say it will, but it can get better. And yeah, everything will happen for a reason. So, all that being said, first YouTube video, did it in the bag. Stick around for other stories. We'll see where this goes. But for now, thanks everyone for listening. Really appreciate it. And I hope you have a wonderful 2024. So let's get it. All right. Bye, everyone.